Deshaun Watson has been suspended for 6 games by the NFL. Judge Sue L. Robinson has come down with her verdict. Those 6 games are subject to an appeal. And there is a little more time for the NFL to dispute what's going on. But what we are here to do, as we do in the barbershop, is break it down the way we break it down to the molecular level. And we give you a look behind the scenes of what went into this judgment, why I believe that this judgment should stand, and why I think the NFL will be foolhardy to continue to pick up and part about this decision, because I think it's deeply rooted in factual information, and we'll talk about it in the only ways that we can right here on the barbershop.
Quality, service, atmosphere. You're next in the chair. Feel at home in the barbershop. G. Bush offers a fresh cut on sports. The barbershop isn't just grooming for guys. It's culture, it's lifestyle, it's sports. And it's now the barbershop is giving the sports scene a sheer shave and shine. Join the makeover now. Follow Garrett Bush at GBush91 on Twitter.
Welcome back in on the barbershop. Thank you guys as well. As always, you can donate at on Cash App if you really feel that this is a great show and you really appreciate the content. You can donate on Cash App at $GBush91. YouTube, you could definitely super chat. But what I wanted to really do is, obviously, you may have seen me on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We had a great panel over there, as only the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show does. What we do, we get some of your thoughts from the Cleveland Browns, former Cleveland Browns, who have been near and dear to the fan base, as well as played here before. So for starting off, we had Tim Couch was with us. We had DeQuell Jackson. We got his information. We got his thought process on what happened. We talked to Leroy Horde. I thought Leroy was great, and the way we were able to talk with him as well. We went in and got in, and we kind of broke this thing apart. And it's in that whole interview. Our whole 2.5 hour show is up on there. So if you want to watch that Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, make sure you can go back on YouTube and watch that. We got all that content up there. But what I wanted to do is, a lot of people have been hitting me up on my phone. I'm really busy today. I got another hit, 2 or 3 national shows that I'm going to be on. But what I really wanted to do is really break this down like we do here in the barbershop, in a way that I like to do and present the information. A lot of people reached out, say, G. Bush, I got to get your thoughts on this. I got to get your thoughts. You was one of the guys who was breaking this information down. You were one of the guys who put that information up, that was pushing back on the narrative that it was going to be a year. It was going to be indefinite. And you pointed out in the transcripts and the documentation that there was no way they were going to get a year suspension out of this. So the reality of it is, it's a lot of people running around upset, grabbing their pearls, clutching their pearls, all in their feelings. And from the beginning, as I've laid out this case, I've said this case has been about facts and not about feeling. And everybody is running around in their feelings, especially in the national media, because they naturally assumed that this was going to play out like people who are used to playing out the way the National Football League handles things. They throw out red blood, they see what the opinion is, and then they jump behind it and overreact when it comes to penalties of players. So here's what everybody's afraid to tell you. Not only did the NFL not have a solid case, not only did they not present any credible, relevant evidence in most of the situations, not only were they outmatched and they overplayed their hand, they are lucky to get 6 games, because in reality, the judge is telling them in her findings, in her briefings, and in her conclusion that you lucky you got 6. I could have gave him 0 and been completely good with it. And that's based on the data, the facts, and the record. So that's the thing no one's telling you. Everybody's complaining about 6. It could have very well been 0, given the documentation that we see here and basic labor law, basic labor concepts. Once again, if people had an issue with what was going on with this, simply get our conclusion out, look up some labor terms and concepts that are readily available to people, and it will explain to you why is it that she came to this certain conclusion. And if you rewind my videos, I told you 7 to 8 different things as to why there was no way you were getting an unprecedented suspension. And she starts off by showing these people first paragraph. Let's check it out. First paragraph. No games, right? Let's go ahead and jump right to it, right? Look what it says. This is the crux. She tells you in the first paragraph what type of timing she's on. The NFL may be a forward-facing organization, but it is not necessarily a forward-looking one. Just as the NFL responded to violent conduct after a public outcry, so it seems the NFL is responding to yet another public outcry about Mr. Watson's conduct. At least in the former situation, the policy was changed and applied proactively. So basically what they said, they changed it and applied it proactively. So basically said, oh, you did something bad, you're getting punished right now. Here, the NFL is attempting to impose a more dramatic shift in its culture without the benefit of fair notice and consistency of consequence for those in the NFL subject to the policy. Now, what I want you to go to is say, right here, it says, those in the NFL subject to the policy. Once again, I need everybody to understand something. The NFL owners are part of this policy. NFL coaches are part of this policy. Players are part of this policy. We've already discussed that. So just because you're an owner, that's great. But you're in the policy and you collectively bargained it. The players didn't throw you in there. Mr. Magoo didn't throw you in there. The Tooth Fairy didn't put you in the policy. It names you. If you wanted to negotiate a better policy, you could have and eliminated your names, but you are in there. By default, that means you're subject to the policy. We just need to get that squared away, right? So what she tells you is 2 things that I told you before, and we need to go and we need to get our other policies out to understand what's going on here. Let's get out of here, dip out to here. Let's go to labor practices. Let's take a look at labor practices. Now, to understand where we're going with this, we just have to figure out under what circumstances do people abide by and ways you need to activate when you're in a union. I want to establish here the difference between an individual who works that does not have a union and an individual who is part of a union. You need to understand those 2 separate concepts because there's a lot of people who believe because they work in a regular situation and they filled out an application on Indeed, they hired you in, they gave you $45,000 a year, some benefits, gave you an HR manual, and you're part of the company. You feel that applies to the NFL. It doesn't. So what I'm showing you here simply is the difference between 2 concepts. One is a union worker, one is a non-union worker. Let us begin. Union contracts usually include a reference to just cause. It is the most often found in one of the following clauses: discipline and discharge, probationary period, personnel files, management rights, or in some other contract article. Even if just cause is not explicitly in a contract, arbitrators will usually apply the just cause standard anyway. So let me just give you this. This is very easy. This is all information you guys can look up. But see, we worry about other things in this country other than what critical thinking, putting concepts together. It just tells you, even if it's not in the contract, arbitrators. You know who's an arbitrator in this case? Sue Robinson is an arbitrator. And she's looking at it through the lens of an arbitrator, not from a person who works at wherever you work and you're not part of a union. So she's looking at it through a specific lens. So when people say, I don't understand how she could come to this conclusion, sure you can. All you got to do is look up labor laws, contracts, and do a little simple research. Trust me, I did this all in a day. It wasn't hard. It wasn't hard. I just typed it in, looked over it, boom, boom, boom. Just cause is a standard that management must adhere to when disciplining or discharging an employee. In this case, Deshaun Watson is part of a union. He was disciplined for his conduct as far as violating the conduct policy in the NFL. It means that in union settings, the employer must have a reason to act in disciplining an employee, and the reason must be just and fair. In non-union workplaces, the workplace is an at-will worker and can be disciplined or fired for whatever reason or no reason at all. See, this is where we're coming to. This is the key point. If you work as a non-union worker, we have what we call in Ohio or certain states, this is an at-will state. So that means you can be disciplined, discharged, fired, let go, disciplined, sanctioned for any reason, and let go at will. Understand that. So when you look at it the lens of, well, I worked over at A and B and C chemical plant, and hey, they let my buddy go and he didn't do anything at all. So what do you think they're going to do to Deshaun Watson, who's been messing around with all these masseuses? It's not the same thing, buddy. Come on, Jim. Come on. It's not the same thing, Terry. It's different. The concept of just cause is well established in labor law. There are specific tests that have to be generally recognized as defining just cause and brief. They follow as notice. So they give you a lot of different things right here. You got to notice the employee, reasonable rule or order. It goes through a large part of this, but what we're trying to do is get to the concept of letting you know the important part of this is the concept that just cause is a part of labor unions, and that you must follow certain regulations and rulings when you're dealing with somebody as part of a union. Newly minted supervisors sometimes assume that just cause is an easy criteria to satisfy. On its face, it only appears to require a legitimate reason for taking action. Years of advocacy, however, have helped to mold the standard into a formidable bulwark. Now, this just goes to show you, she's Sue Robinson has been in this type of arbitration hearing before. Guess what? She knows all of these things. Let's continue to go on, and we'll see where this thing starts to break down and how Judge Sue Robinson started to come to her framework of her beginning introductory paragraph. It goes right here to say, recent enforcement. Punishment may not be imposed for violating a rule or standard that an employee has not enforced for a prolonged period. I repeat that again. Punishment may not be imposed for violating a rule or standard that the employee has not enforced for a prolonged period. I know a couple people that come in, Robert Kraft, Snyder, Jerry Jones. So here's the problem. Here's what we're looking at. So just because you do have the rule, a lot of times people think the rule just being stated is good enough, not under labor laws. And that is not just cause for certain amounts of punishment. When management fails to take action against an infraction for several months or longer, Jerry Jones stuff goes back years. Robert Kraft stuff goes years. Snyder goes years and years and years and years. Employees are encouraged to believe that the policy or rule is no longer in effect. In such circumstances, imposing discipline is equivalent to applying a rule of which the employee is unaware of. So here, y'all got to understand something, man. See, you thought when you came into this process, you was dealing with checkers, not chess. I told you it was chess. When you go in front of judges and when you go in front of lawyers, you got to have facts and you got to know the law. If you have not been enforcing your rules of the collective bargaining agreement, which states that owners will be held to a higher standard, then why would you believe that this woman who is held by arbitration rules and laws and precedent think that you're going to come in and give an unprecedented suspension? What? I'm just saying. I'm just confused. If you would look it up, it's right there in front of you. Oh, that's not enough? Let's keep going. Let's go back to refresh your memory. At least in the former situation, the policy was changed and applied proactively. Here, when she says here, she's meaning here in this instance with Deshaun Watson. In the instance here with Deshaun Watson, the NFL is attempting to impose a more dramatic shift in its culture without the benefit of fair notice to and consistency of consequence for those in the NFL subject to the policy. It's right there, people. Just read it. I'll go back to what I just said, and you see if you think this is what she's talking about. When you don't enforce it for such a long period of time, in such circumstance, imposing discipline is equivalent to applying a rule of which the employee is unaware. It's all right there. Want to keep going? I like to keep going. Let's continue to go on here. Equal treatment, unless justified by a valid distinction. Sometimes you guys say, some people will stop and say, but G. Bush, there is a valid distinction. It's the person that owns it, and it's the person that works for the owner. Well, yeah, that's a valid distinction. But for the purposes of the collective bargaining agreement for conduct, they are all under the same policy, which she clearly stated right here, my good sir. She clearly states right here, as I will go back to it here under section 1 right here, and consistency of consequence for those in the NFL subject to the policy, which means owners. Unless justified by a valid distinction, an employer may not assess a much stronger punishment against one employee than it has assessed against another employee known to have committed the same offense. Favoritism and discrimination are incompatible just cause. Employers must treat all employees who commit the same or similar offenses essentially alike. When you name yourself in the collective bargaining agreement, that means you are essentially the same person. You are equivalent. So you fall under this section 5, equal treatment. We talked about it. People thought it was a joke. People said, that's not going to work in the court of law. It's funny how law works, because a fact is a fact. An opinion is opinion. And just because you don't like the fact of the allegations doesn't mean that you get to make up what you want to do just to save face. That doesn't work. 6, progressive discipline. This another thing explains why the 6 games. I'm telling you, it's easy. Just look it up. Progressive discipline, when responding to misconduct that is short of egregious. Now watch this. Deshaun Watson received 6 games because it was egregious. That's what I'm telling you right now. This policy says when responding to misconduct that is short of egregious, an employer must issue at least one level of discipline that allows the employee an opportunity to improve. Okay, so we got you, G. Bush. Got your moment. See, well, if it wasn't egregious, he would have never got suspended to start with, right? Well, I don't know if that's an I got you moment, because I'm going to just go right back to what she says. I'll pull up her words, not my emotions. Looking at the record and how it compared to the relevant precedent, and looking forward to how this disciplinary determination might be used in the future, I find the most appropriate landing place to be as follows. Mr. Watson is hereby suspended 6 regular season games without pay, although this is the most significant punishment ever imposed on an NFL player for allegations of non-sexual conduct. So she's already telling you one thing right now. Y'all want it unprecedented. I'm giving you unprecedented. I'm telling you right now, my 6-game suspension is unprecedented, given the lack of evidence that you presented to me in this court. Already unprecedented. You want to get crazy and give them indefinite, and I'm telling you, you lucky you got 6 games. And she gave him the 6 games because of this. Mr. Watson's pattern of conduct is more egregious than any before reviewed by the NFL. Let's go back to it. Why is he getting suspended? Why is he getting 6 games? Just go back and read what we're talking about. When responding to misconduct that is short of egregious, she says this is over egregious. Oh, this is egregious. So since it's egregious, I don't have to do progressive discipline. I don't have to do this point. You see, I'm giving you points that don't even really go to my point, because I'm just being honest. I'm just giving you the material. People say that shouldn't be getting no games. No, her precedent is solid. Her thought process is solid. The way she's thinking about it, based on the law in the relevance of the law in pertains to this case. When responding to misconduct that is short of egregious, an employer must issue at least one level of discipline that allows the employee the opportunity to approve. But she's telling you here, the reason I'm not going to go with that and give you 0 games and suspend and just have it be probation, she says it right here in paragraph 2. Recognizing the only discipline mentioned in the CBA is a fine or suspension, I nevertheless believe it is appropriate for Mr. Watson to limit his massage therapy to club-directed sessions and club-approved massage therapists for the duration of his career, and so impose this mandate as a condition of his reinstatement. Also, Mr. Watson is not to have any adverse involvement with law enforcement and must not commit any violations under said policy. So let's go back to what they said. I know you guys are getting kind of dizzy here. Here's what she says. I'm going to give you 6 games because your conduct is egregious. And it says it's widely accepted that the purpose of a workplace penalty should be correct the misconduct, not to punish or humiliate. She's correcting the misconduct because she's saying to him, here's your guardrails. From now on, you go to club mandated masseuses. You go to no more Instagram people. You go to no more people outside of that. You don't be jumping around doing God knows what. You're going to take, and you're going to go, and this is a condition of your sentence, of your readmittance to the league. When a possibility exists that an employee can improve, the employer should apply the lowest punishment that is likely to achieve the lowest penalty that would achieve the desired result was 6 games and making sure he never goes to another masseuse, and the fact that you've already lost a year prior to that, which goes to the mitigating, extenuating, and aggravating circumstances. Discipline must be proportional to the gravity of the offense, taking into account any mitigating, extenuating, or aggravating circumstances. So on top of this, he's already sat out a year. He's already sat out a whole year. So those are extenuating circumstances on top of this. If he had played all last year and decided he wasn't going to settle any of these lawsuits, this determination could have been fully different. She could have came and said, well, yeah, I am going to give you a year. You know why? Because you played all last year, right? 2, you didn't go to any counseling. He said he has gone to counseling. 3, you didn't take any of the cases seriously, and so you fighting every one of the cases, so you haven't solved any of those. And right now, until we can get to a point where we can at least come to some common ground on getting some of these 30 cases, my idea is I got a lot of stuff to do with you to correct behavior. To do that, I needed an indefinite period of time until we could start to put some guardrails. But you know what she looked at? You sat out a year. You're in counseling. You've gotten all but one of the settlements done. You've showed up. 2 grand juries said you didn't have enough to take you to court and to prosecute you. And now you're here in front of me. You've been forthright. I'm going to give you 6 games, not because I'm just letting you off the hook. I'm giving you 6 games based on the precedent set, moving forward, what this policy is supposed to look like, and letting the NFL know that next time, if you want to have a certain outcome, you might want to treat everybody in your collective bargaining conduct policy the same. If you would have came in here, NFL, and you would have gave me the stack of letters that said, look, we got Dan Snyder. We told him he can't even enter his facility. Robert Kraft had to give up 2 draft picks, $500,000 fine, and he had to do 60 hours of community service for what he did. Jerry Jones lost 2 draft picks. He's also had to go through sensitivity training. We've also talked about the possibility of him losing more draft picks in the future if he does not complete a corporate compliance course on sexual harassment. These are what we're doing to the top of our food chains. Our owners, the NFL takes it seriously from top to bottom, all the way down. We are credibly looking at an NFL case of discrimination with Brian Flores and the Rooney Rule. We are taking that seriously. Here are the things we put in place. If they would have did that and they came here and slapped them papers down, and they said, now we want Deshaun Watson to have a 1 year minimum sentence, they would have had ground to stand on. You know why? Punishment may not be imposed for violating a rule standard that an employer has not enforced for a prolonged period of time. If you come in here and you can show that I've already been doing this against the top of the food chain, the owners who are held to a higher standard, the judge is more likely to say, Mr. Watson, the organization takes it very seriously. Here are the steps they've done to take the corrective actions on the top of the food chain. We have no choice but under the collective bargaining agreement to set up 1 year suspension. But the NFL did not do that. The NFL did not have any of those guardrails. And so therefore, given labor laws, given reasoning, given everything that happened and precedented, it's not quite that difficult to quite understand why it is that Deshaun Watson only got 6 games earlier. It's the fact that she's giving you that tough motherly love. You know, if you look at me as an adult, my mother would probably tell me, if this was me in that circumstances, she would say, yeah, son, me and your father didn't raise you that way. I understand that you did not do anything illegal, but the standard that we have in this family is not just doing stuff that's not illegal. We believe in doing stuff the right way. You know how I feel about the misconduct, and you know how I feel about what you was doing out here in these streets. To be honest with you, they gave you 6, I probably would give you 12. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm disappointed in the decisions you made. It wasn't the fact that you forced anybody to do something. Force ain't got nothing to do with it. Even if the massage therapist was down to do whatever you wanted to do sexually, do you think it was a good idea to be doing that out in public and at a place of business? No, I know you don't. So now you have to pay the consequences of your stupidity because you put yourself in harm's way. It could have been worse than this. It could have been worse than this. So what we're going to say is, hopefully you learn from that. Learn that just because you didn't do anything illegal does not mean it can't cost you your life, can't cost you your money, can't cost you your career, can't cost you your reputation. And you're seeing that all firsthand today. So you're going to take them 6 games and tuck that away, and you're going to have to like it, because I told you it's consequences in this world, and I didn't raise you like that. So hopefully you make the necessary changes, and that you find a woman, find a person you love. If that's the kind of behavior you want to do, marry somebody, live a nice life, and do it the nice, simple, legal, and wholesome way. Hey, if that's your wife, your husband, you won't find any trouble in that, and make sure you keep it that way. I think Sue L. Robinson is coming down the pipeline saying, yes, I understand it's unprecedented, but what I want to do is I need to keep other people from going down that same path you did. Yes, looking back, did the league not do what it was correctly supposed to do in Robert Kraft and some of these other individuals? Sure, they didn't. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Moving forward, we both know what the game is. So it's a PSA for owners. If you held to a higher standard and you're an owner, please get ready. If we catch you doing this type of behavior, I gave a player 6 games. What do you think you're going to get? You've been warned. You've all been warned. You've all been warned. If I gave him 6, what you think I'm going to give you? So I think I need everybody to be on the same page here. That is the reason I feel that's her thought process and going through this. Let's get a couple other things here too. I think this is important. Albert Brewer writes a few things on Sue Robinson's 15-page conclusion on Deshaun Watson. I have not read the entire brief. I've given you the first part of the excerpt. There's a lot more in that. He said, based on 4 cases brought by the NFL, the 5th case was thrown out because the NFL didn't interview the woman. Now, here's the point I'm making. And I talk to people about not about your feelings. It's facts over feelings. A lot of people are running around here, and I'm sure there's going to be people in other states that want to tell you that this was too light. It was too light. All the stuff that went on, allegations, it was too light. He got off. This is egregious. I can't believe it. He's still guilty. Well, here's a few things. Just like you guys jumped to the conclusions, the NFL did the same thing. Because I don't understand how you can have an indefinite suspension based on 4 cases brought by the NFL. Rehearse 66. That surely got dwindled down to about 24, right? Out of those 24 cases or 25 cases, we are now at 1. All those cases have been settled. However, just go look at the case the NFL brought before a judge. See, when stuff is not playing in a court of public opinion, and you got to have facts, data, documents, testimonies, and things to back it up in front of a former federal judge, it's different. Facts and feelings don't matter in courtrooms. And so the reality of it is the NFL didn't even interview the woman. Now, mind you, this is alarming at the fact that the NFL did not even interview the woman, and they were saying indefinite suspension. That just goes to show you, I don't know what you guys, it is fraudulent behavior. Let me give you guys this. I don't know who told you this. I don't know why America and people begin to think this is the way you act and this is supposed to be the moral high ground. It is fraudulent behavior. It is almost, pretty much, it almost shows a low level of character for an individual to jump to conclusions and say allegations and the optics are what matter. Do you know how egregious that is? For you to sit up here as a grown, thinking adult who pays taxes, who has the faculties given by God to discern, to decipher, to look through information, for you to say the only thing that matters is the allegation and the optics. Do you know how many times there have been people falsely accused and put in prison as black men on optics? Optics. Well, he looked like he did it. At the end of the day, it's not about optics. It's not about optics. It's about what you can prove and what's in those documents. And for people to be saying it's egregious for the NFL to even suggest that they didn't even talk to the woman, and yet NFL interviewed a total of 12 women. They interviewed 12 women, and out of those 12, they only brought 4 cases. So what does that tell you about the other 8? Could be they just didn't have good stories. Could be their stories weren't as good as the 4. Could be they had some very egregious things that happened that took place that they kind of left out that made them not look credible. I know if I got 12 cases sound way better than 4, right? 12 cases with corroborated facts, stories, and depositions look way better than just 4. And then here's the big one. SR, being Sue Robinson, criticized the NFL for making calls based on public perception. See, this is where we spoke, and I said there's a difference between Aunt Susie or Uncle Joe on Facebook or city worker Tom over here, or somebody that works at the elementary school that's sitting here listening to stuff and tweeting and typing and don't even know what they're talking about. And from a federal judge, 25 years in the game. She was hired by both of them to collectively bargain this. And she criticized the NFL for doing what the NFL does. Let's whip up a stir. Let's put my finger in the air and judge the way the tea leaves is going. And then we just take that and run with it, because then that's justice. Come on now. I don't understand how you even thought this was going to go down. She publicly said, come on. I don't know whether you guys believe this is the way you handle stuff. I'm glad that I'm in this process, and I took a long time to look at it, because to be honest with you, the fact that you use public opinion and perception to punish players is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it's the same things we've been pointing out. And there's a group of people that are still on the internet, even after a federal judge and 2 grand juries have all looked at this information and come back with it, and you still say he's guilty. Well, listen, those individuals prove me right every single time. Because the one thing that I have said, I never commented on the wrong or degree of right Deshaun Watson is. I said, knowing what I know as a black man in this country, Sometimes you are guilty no matter what you do. Sometimes you just didn't, well, we can't hire you because it just didn't sit right with me. Or yeah, I know that you got more qualifications than this guy, but it's just, I don't know, it's a gut feeling. I know that the DA said and showed evidence that they planted that evidence, but he had to be guilty of something because every cop can't play. I understand that. Come on now. Come on now. I'm just saying, this is what happens when you get an impartial judge who then gives their judgment after looking at all the documents, after having 25 years of experience, gymnastics that you have to do to come back to say, well, the grand jury number one was wrong. They go to another county. Oh, that grand jury of 15 people, they were off too. Okay. Then this woman, a judge, right? An arbiter comes in, takes a look at all of the documents, all of the contemporaneous notes, all of the testimonies, and she comes back with 6 games. But yet and still, you got people on Twitter, Facebook, talking about they know more. Oh, I know more about the case than she does. All of them that saw all of the notes, saw all of the background information on both sides, and took 3 weeks to deliberate, and even gave you time to give extra briefs. You telling me that you sitting at home, knitting a sweater, talking about January 6th was a hoax? I'm just saying. We'll keep it rolling. We'll keep it rolling. I'm going through the documents with you today. That's all I'm doing. This is a day for documents. Sometimes I can do opinion, but sometimes you got to have the documents too. Now let's talk about what the NFL and how they parse this and sparse this out. And this is very important because my thing is this: as we continue to almost wrap this thing up, there's not going to be a case where the NFL has to come back and say, "Oh, I know you can appeal this. I understand that you have the right to appeal it, but let's be clear: if you do appeal it, and you do appeal it to yourself, everybody in the world's going to know exactly what you are. Frauds. And what you're opening yourself up for is not scrutiny. You open yourself up for a class action lawsuit for discrimination. So I believe if it was me, the league should just tread lightly. But let's go ahead and they may not. So let's go and see what they're going to talk about. Let's get in this. Here we go. We thank Judge Sue L. Robinson, the independent disciplinary office, for her review of the voluminous of record and attention during a 3-day hearing that resulted in her finding of multiple violations of the NFL personal conduct policy by Deshaun Watson. We appreciate Judge Robinson's diligence and professionalism throughout this process. Pursuant to the collective bargaining agreement, the NFL or NFLPA, on behalf of Watson, may appeal the decision within 3 days. In light of her followings, the league is reviewing Judge Robinson's imposition of a 6-game suspension and will make a determination of any next steps. Now, I will say this: if you are looking at that, and what they are saying, one thing that they gotta really, really take a look in the mirror and understand is this a process that you really want to, just dump cold water all over? Because this is what you collectively bargained. Sometimes in life you can do something, but it don't mean you should. All money ain't good money. And for you, the NFL, to hire a disciplinary independent counselor to come in and give her thought process as a judge, as a former attorney, and as a woman, and then she deliberates, has a hearing, hears both sides from both lawyers, and then gives a outline, detailed 15-page response as to what happened, why she came to that conclusion, and why or why not he got a year, or why not he's getting 6 games. And for you to come behind her when she's had the most information, she's had the most exposure to the case, and you undermine her just so you can look like you care about something, is egregious on the highest levels. Because we know you don't care about anything. When she asked you about Robert Kraft, and when she asked you about your other owners, you replied with we didn't do anything, we wasn't going to do anything, and you know you wasn't doing nothing, and still ain't going to do nothing. So for you to come tap dance on this, talking about we got 3 days to think about the process, sure you do. But you also have 3 days to understand that Deshaun Watson, and they so eloquently did it, it was a chess move. They came out and said, you know what? We're standing on whatever she gives. And we think we should get 0, but we're going to stand on whatever game she gives us. They gave him 6. They say we stand on it. Now, for you to say, oh, I'm going to just tap dance, rip her whole report up, and just give him 2 more games and a fine, or I don't know what you expect to get out of that. Because the NFL Players Association is going to say, well, let's see how you figure about this. Let's go to a federal judge. And federal judges usually don't like overruling other judges. He's going to say, didn't you guys have an arbiter for this? Why are you back here now? What good does it do you? And in my opinion, the NFL has to stand on whatever it is. Because from now on, if you undercut this, we already know that it's a rigged system, given the facts, given everything from the beginning of time. 6 games is what it is. At the end of the day, Deshaun Watson wanted 0. At the end of the day, the NFL wanted a year indefinite. Neither side got exactly what they wanted. But coming out of it, I applaud Sue Robinson for doing 2 things. She was fair, she was open, she was honest about what it is that she was looking for in the criteria, and figuring out not only, hey, my job is to get the NFL to get to a place where everybody knows what the expectation level is. Everyone now moving forward does. And she did it in a way that was by the law, did it in a way that was fair, and did it in a way that was open and honest for both sides. If the NFL comes back and tries to hem and haw and do this shuck and jive and 2-step, we all see through it. You're going to have to stand with the consequences that come with that. At the end of the day, as a black man in America, all you want is fairness and fair treatment under the law. Today, I think Deshaun Watson got fair treatment under the law. What do you say? Write and comment below. Thank you guys so much. As always, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and we'll be back at another place at another time, hopefully talking about what we want to get into preferably, and that is the game. It's your boy G. Bush. We out.
Quality, service, atmosphere. You're next in the chair. Feel at home in the Barbershop. G. Bush offers a fresh cut on sports. The Barbershop isn't just grooming for guys. It's culture, it's lifestyle, it's sports. And it's now the Barbershop is giving the sports scene a sheer shave and shine. Join the makeover now. Follow Garrett Bush at GBush91 on Twitter.